because you're going to want to cut with the blue around the white area. Um, and you saw me do a little bit earlier. Sometimes I splatter some clean water as well. So once I've prepared the color on the palette, I want to prepare the paper. And I wet the back, it's taped down, and and then I'll prepare the paper with clean water. And as you can see here, I can pick up some of that yellow, some of that orange, and just let it drop in. So I'm trying to find the color in the cloud area to start off with. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to find the light orangey parts, and then we're going to build the blue around that. And then obviously the other part of the clouds around that. So we need to sort of get in a bit of color, a bit of tone into the light part of the clouds. And then we're going to cut in with some of that stronger blue just to form it. So negative painting, if you're familiar with that concept. And then we'll work our way down into the thicker clouds. And of course, below that is the landscape. But we don't have to think about the landscape or the river anytime soon. In a cloudscape like this, where most of it's the cloud, the first wash is very key, making sure you have wet into wet, like we do with the wet paper and the wet brush that we've applied clean water with. And we go from there. So we have wet, clean water, and then we're building in some color into it. Maybe, yeah, you see that a bit of this gray as well, just around some of the orange. So going from white of the paper, which is wet, melting in some orangey yellow into that. And then away from that, we go into a bit more of a gray. And so what does that do? You're creating a gradient of color, and also sort of a gradient with regards to value, with regards to thickness. So it's helpful. And this is a great way of finding the light first, developing sort of, part of the star of the show, this light part of the sky, which is where the sun is hitting. Doing that is really great as a first step on location as well. When you're outdoors and you see this, take the photo, do the quick sketch. If it's still there, yeah, do a small study where you're doing exactly what we're doing first. Do the white light part, which has orangey tones first, and then you can cut around and build around that later on. So um, this is what we've got to do. We've just got to build a bit of complexity in this light area, and then cut, as you can see there, now cut in with some of that sort of darker tone. It's still quite a light tone, right? Think about how strong that part top left is compared with maybe the bottom, and the bottom is very dark and moody. So we want it to be darker, of course, because it's not going to be in the sun, this part on the left. But at the same time, it needs to be more, a mid-tone color, not too strong, just sort of milky consistency rather than sort of really creamy or thick, It's got to be this nice, sort of smooth. And in a way, this is sort of the underwash. In a way, we're just building this blue cloud area, first of all, and we can thicken it up, wet into wet later on. So even I think the tone here is not as dark as it will become, but we're building some of these shapes in now and just really making sure that we're connecting the blue sky with that part of the cloud in the sun. That's the most important connection right now. So we're not even thinking about the dark blue yet. We don't need to, because that's going to be a hard edge. But we need to connect the light shape with blue. So I'm not thinking too much about exactly what it is there, the detail of the cloud. I'm just building some more complexity, making sure that I'm getting in some differences in tone. So
We
see
have
what I'm doing.
a couple of questions here. Dina asks if you can repeat the colors, and Millie asks if you sprayed the top of the paper at all with water before starting.
Yes. So when you're buckle when you wet the back, it will buckle. So what I do is I give it a spray on the front, Just a few sprays, and it should rebound as well and sort of and stretch out. So I do spray that at the moment because you wet the back in this part. I don't feel the need to. I've got time. We've got time. It's yeah, where I am. I'm painting in a quite humid environment, and therefore I know even more than being in the UK indoors, it's going to dry less. If you feel like it's starting to dry, give it a few sprays. Nice sprays is obviously good, great to do. And what am I using? Cobalt blue, quinacridone rose, and new gamboge, primarily those colors. And they are the three primaries: blue, sort of pinky red, and yellow. So again, connections of shapes. This area was wet, so it's melting together, which is quite nice. But I'm trying to gain some thickness blue of the sky. And this is going to be done, and we're going to be painting negatively, right? So we're going to be cutting around the white area, make sure that it's dry. If it's very wet in that area, well, I would suggest getting a bit of tissue and just making sure that the very edge of it is dry. And then what you can do is you can see here what I'm doing right now. I'm just cutting around that area. Um, and you can see I'm going to build the actual form of the cloud in a second. So part of that top, which I just touched there, is wet into wet. So it's melting nice with the grey part on the left. And then that bit below is in the center is dry. So as I cut through this, it stays. The blue just simply stays. And that is really just understanding the how wet your paper is in different areas and using it to your advantage. So that's what I'm doing. I think I probably exaggerated that little area there, but I just wanted to get that nice that that nice light bit there. So that's what I mean by negative painting. We're just using the blue to shape around the white and frame it. And here I realize I don't need that white there too much anyway. So again, trying to create some wet into wet effect by doing that. So you can see that we're starting to coming together. You have to be careful in this part about the line at the bottom of the wash, right in the middle of the dark, stormy clouds. Make sure that there's a bit of a bead at the bottom, so that you've got a bit more time to go in and cut through those sharp lines. But if you do, and you can see that I do at the bottom there, I have a bit of time to work in the middle here, and that's what I'm doing. So you've got got a bit of time. You framed around it. Now add some more detail. So what does that mean? Maybe you want to go a bit more orange if it's washed out. Maybe it's in a thicker amount of pigment. You can do anything you want here, but just make sure that it's you haven't got that much water on your brush. So you're putting in a brush which has more pigment and less water than the other washes that you've done. If you do it that way, you're not going to get any cauliflowering. So just make sure it's a bit thicker and drier, and then you can add into it. See what I've done? I've just I realized that even though it was realistic, that shape of the cloud, it wasn't looking that good. So what I've done is I've got a bit of tissue there and just spread it out a bit more and opened up that cloud to be a bit rounder. And to me, that's more good looking. So, again, you have your moment, the emotion you want to give. That doesn't necessarily translate into copying exactly what you've seen. Sometimes you just feel like you need to make some few changes, which is what we are doing together. So again, yeah, a bit of yellow, orange, just getting in some stronger color there, just to add some oomph before we get into the stronger darks below. Any more questions?
The only question was regarding cauliflower effect. Sorry, I'm eating. But you answered that exactly when that question was asked. So that was perfect.
Oh, well, there you go. Beautiful. Um, yeah, cauliflowering, yeah, as long as you're using less water and a bit more pigment, even if it's slightly, it doesn't have to be extremes. It's fine. But when in doubt, if you're worried about, cauliflowering because that's happening a lot, make your mix, and then with a bit of tissue, just dab your brush before you actually put it onto the paper. And you're just going to be drying it slightly, reducing some of the water in the brush, and 9 times out of 10, you won't have a problem because it'll be fine with the tissue. So shall I give that a go? Right. So I've got the blues going well. The blue of the sky, the highlighted area is going well. I think it's time to now build some of this darkness. And again, you don't want to go full out darkness at the top there. It's sort of more of a purpley blue. So I've got cobalt blue there, I've got quinacridone rose. I'm adding in a bit of that yellow, that orangey yellow into it so that it's not completely blue. It's a bit, that's working with grays. But we're working with blue grays. So all the three primaries are in my washes, but I'm using much more blue and much more purple. I mean, red, which makes purple. So because the cloud bit that we did before is drying a little bit, and we can take this time to build some of these other parts on top of it, as you see I'm doing there. So what's this? This is less water, more pigment, and I'm just building wet into wet, but it's drying enough that it's going to stay there. And when I have the top there, you just want to go with a big flat brush and just move across. Really good not to use small brushes when possible. So as you can see, even though some of this detail is quite particular, I'm still using my flat brush. I don't want to give any more information than is required. So I use as big a brush as possible. So as you can see, I've dropped in that darker bit of clouds on top of it. And because it's thicker in pigment, it's not spreading out so much. It's gonna remain there. It will, of course, spread out a bit, and some parts are wetter than others. Maybe on the left, it's gonna melt quite a lot. I might have to reapply. But in that central area, it's sticking quite well. And now is the time to go in deeper, go in darker. So we've got a bit more of that stronger cobalt blue. We've got some quinacridone rose into that to make it a bit more of a purpley color. And of course, as I said, we've got a bit of the sort of yellowy orange parts as well, just to keep it more grey rather than straight up blue. If you use the three primaries in every color that you do, even if it's mostly purple and there's not much yellow in it, even if you put a little bit of that same yellow in, you're going to create color harmony. It means that every wash that you do, every color that you choose, it's just working with the same colors in different quantities. And that is the best way to keep it looking good. So, as you can see, building. So we've gone from lights and we're going to dark. Again, big brush. Don't be too fiddly. It's drying. Hopefully, it's still wet, like it is in mine on my paper. If you're struggling with it, give it some sprays. Not too close together, but maybe it's a good time to say that water. Sorry, water. Yeah, water is important in watercolor, but paper is so important. If you're finding that everything's drying very quickly and it's not melting the way that it's doing so with my paper, then you know that maybe the paper you're using is not up to scratch. It's not the best for watercolor. If you wet the back, you should have time, like I do, to add in this complexity and have freedom to do so. So I would suggest, investing in the best paper you can, and then not investing as much in the brushes or the paints if need be. But drying time is critical to do more complex paintings like we're doing. And as you can see, I have the time to do this. So hopefully you do too. If you don't, yeah, let me know. Maybe let me know what brand you're using, and we can have a conversation. Of course, on offline workshops, we look through materials, we see what people have got. They share their, tips and for example, Beth gave me a lovely color, a Daniel Smith color, granulated color. Just make sure they're straight lines, and then you'll be onto a winner. The brush I'm using, that flat brush, is a synthetic flat brush. It's an Skoda Ultimo, I believe. Yeah, synthetic flat brush, very nice. I've got these Asian style brushes, which are natural hairs, like I'm doing here. So in this part, you've got the reflections, the ripples in the water. So when it's drying, you get in thicker pigment, less water, and you do just some marks. They've got to be horizontal, and they just got to look like ripples in the water. Don't go too crazy, and also don't really go into the very light of the river. You want to keep that reflection. You want to make sure that you've got just an indication of these ripples, and let it dry. Let it dry and become softer. See that? Just smaller as you go up to the top. Smaller, very faint. Just let that go. Don't do too much. It's so tempting to just overdo the water. So that's all we're going to do. You might want a final darkness bit, but I've done it much darker than in reality. So maybe you don't even want to do it as dark as I'm going to do it. But I just thought it would add a nice effect. Right. So yeah, synthetic brushes that I'm using. Sorry, is the flat brush, and the rest are natural fibers and natural hairs. Asian, very, very economical brushes. We're talking about 50 cents brushes, 50p, 50 euro cent, whatever you want to, whatever it is. Very simple, cheap brushes from my local art store in Vietnam. It's not, they're not fancy. The Skoda one is the most fancy. So paper this one is actually bao hong. Again, something that I can pick up in Vietnam. It's a very granulating paper, cold pressed, 300 GSM, 100% cotton paper, very lovely, and it's a lot more granulating than, for example, Arches or Saunders Waterford. Even though it's got exactly the same, cold pressed 300 GSM, for some reason bao hong is just a lot more granulating, which adds a bit of character as well. It's nice to do. So yeah, I'm using bao hong. I recommend Saunders Waterford. I think it's incredible. I think Arches is incredible as well. Fabriano does great, professional grade, and bao hong I think is great because it's not as expensive. Thicker pigment, so working with Payne's grey, sepia if you want, or just literally the three primaries, but adding more blue and a bit of Payne's grey into it, and then you can achieve the boat effect. Now, of course, one of the things that we talk about in our plein air workshops is the power of of tone and getting in those contrasts. So getting the darkest of the dark in the focal point, contrasting against the light. You know, if it's the white of the paper, it's great. If it's if it's a light, you know, shade like it is sort of now, then great as well. And it just makes the boats pop, you know. So I've gone with a bit more of a colourful one on this side. Um, and as you can see there, they really do still sort of pop in a way. So yeah, final details. Get your final details in. Also, you know, pops of color. You can pop color on the boats. So if you do something quite dark, maybe get some yellow or get something else. You can see what I'm doing here. Adding in some spots of yellow and just bringing some light back into that area. You don't want it to sort of take away from the sky. So again, simplicity is key. But you know, it being having some yellow parts is always a good thing. Um, and I'm just doing some final making a tail for the boats, so it's more seen as if it's passing along the river rather than just stationary. I think the other one is more stationary. So what I do with this is, you know, I'll finish this off and then I'll sleep on it, always sleep on it overnight. And then the next morning come back, maybe something's off, maybe you want to add, you know, a few little changes. Minor details is always nice to do, just to make sure that everything's in place. But this, you know, you would want to leave this and take the tape off and enjoy, and not do too much. You know, it's so very tempting to just to overwork it as well, and that's not a good thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the signature on it, and then I'll take the tape off, um, and go from there. So I think that is the end of the painting. So hopefully it was, you know, I spoke quite fast. It was quite done, you know, in a fast way. So I'm really hoping that you were able to follow along. And of course, as Hannah said, we've got the recording there. So if you wanted to take it in your own pace, you've got the recording for that. This last part, always nice to take tape off. I think, yeah, just really adds a nice touch. One of the benefits of watercolor is to do this. So there you go. I've exaggerated the light on the water, really creating that moment. And I think it works.
We had a question here from Leslie. Is that a rough paper that you are painting on in this demonstration?
In the demo, it was cold pressed, but actually Baohong cold pressed feels like rough, someone's water with arches. It's very granulating and it feels much more rough.
Ah, so a bit both yes and rough-ish.
Yeah.
Then we have a question from, let me see here. We had a question from Millie. There were some white dots on the top of the sky that you chose to leave there. If you remember, some highlights in the dark blue area or in the upper blue area. And Millie asks, that happens to me sometime. Do you suggest leaving them alone or trying to fill them in? What is the correct answer?
I leave those sparkles on purpose. I think that if you have parts of the painting that's very painterly and you know, fluid and lost and found moments, I don't really like to have other parts which are very tight and connect, you know, and smooth. So if I'm doing a scene, I will also treat the bigger shapes, even if they're meant to be blue sky or smooth surfaces, with a bit of lost and found, a bit of, you know, recklessness or carelessness maybe. So yeah, I did that on purpose, and I think you should leave it. That's my personal opinion.
And of course, there are as many opinions as there are people when it comes to art. So that is Nick's way of doing things, and if you're inspired by that and find that beautiful, then follow that. And if you want to create a completely different thing, do that. It's up to you. But thanks for
Mm,
sharing that, how you feel about that, and that is very intentional for you, Nick. Beautiful to know.
mm.
And then we had the question from, let me find this. I have. Oh, Diane says, love the mysterious magic feeling. That's so beautiful. Oh, there was a question from Murthy. Where was that? I have. There were several questions from Murthy, so I thought there was another one. You have already answered what paper you're using, so that's perfect. Um, we also had a question, how do you motivate your students for painting, Nick?
I don't motivate them painting. I guess it's if you're clear with your instruction and it breaks things, complex ideas into simple, achievable goals. I think that is inspiring because then you go from one step to the next and you build into a more complicated scene or more ambitious art works. So I think, yeah, I think maybe I try to do it by making things digestible and making it feel like anything's possible.
Mm, thank you for that. We just got a question from Vuka. Uh, please could Nicholas share some recommendations on how to get from London to Da Nang, airline stopover, layover, etc., as I presume he's done that trip more than once.
Yes, so I would recommend if it's early enough, then go through Emirates or Abu Dhabi, Abu Dhabi or Dubai. So Emirates or Etihad, it's the most comfortable airlines. Some of the best in the world. The TV and TV show selection in especially Emirates is amazing. But also it's quite halfway, so you've got flights which are not too long. I've flown through China, and the first one was a 10-hour flight to Guangzhou, and it was a bit yeah, yeah, I think going through the Middle East is better.
Hmm.
So I really recommend that, and you can get some really good deals through even with Etihad or Emirates. Don't think that they're going to be very expensive. Um, yeah, have a look definitely at the actual airlines websites as well. So I recommend that. I mean, what you can do, you can fly direct to Bangkok as well, and then go from Bangkok to Da Nang. So for a lot of people, flying into Thailand to Bangkok will be the first thing they do, and then they'll fly on to Da Nang, which is what I mean. Partly what I do. Well, I'm in Bangkok now. I mean, it's the regional hub, so or Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. So you can do that as well.
That is probably helpful advice for many people, not just from England, but from other parts of Europe,
Mm.
maybe even from North America, or no, North Africa. Let me see if there are any questions in the chat as well. Teresa says, I must go. Like to see you, Nicholas. Thanks, Hannah. Good question, Buka. Francesca says, thanks for the demo. Vietnam is tempting. Buka says, thank you. Beautiful. Yeah, Teresa says, I will search a cheap ticket, and when I find, I can. Yes, beautiful. Exceptional. Thank you from Frederick. Ah, okay. The recording. Thank you both for creating a great atmosphere for Minty. Diane says thank you so much, Nicholas and Hannah. And Mila says thank you so much, Nicholas and Hannah. I will paint tomorrow. Today was all my attention. Yes, I can imagine. Caroline says thank you so much for this wonderful lesson. Mary says like there are more thanks than questions right now. We had now I found the one from Murthy that I was looking for. How do you
Mm.
find the story in landscapes? That's a great question.
How do you find the story in landscapes? Well, I think it's really about understanding how the landscape touches you, So I think that's a quite personal thing to do is when you're outdoors, what excites you about what you're seeing. I think for many people, it's really the human story, the idea that there is people living their lives on the land, and maybe the land is a big backdrop. And so I think, yeah, the human element really adds a touch. That's architecture. Maybe it's, workers in the field. Smoke in the chimneys is about human life as well. Even if it's about the senses, it's also about what the people are doing in their homes. So I think, yeah, if you want advice about how to find the story, well, then maybe think about the people in the area that you're in. And if you're in a really wild place, well, it's about the majesty of the land. So the story is Mother Earth. It's the nature. Maybe it's a very dynamic tree. You can be more practical with your storytelling as well. So yeah, thinking about it with regards to a dominant subject, dominant rock, dominant tree that just sits within the rest of the landscape and just sort of creates that majesty or that interest. So yeah, honing in on subjects to help you tell, and then the story can develop from there. Time of day, season of the year, yeah, cold, warm, that kind of thing.
So following more what captures your interest rather than compositional theories. That's what I hear you say, because you could have said, watch the lines and look at the focal point, but instead you make it, yeah, for you at least, it is what captures you and what you want to create, because that's what you love about that scene and that's what you want to share with the people who view the watercolor.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, because you can paint a very functional painting, a very logical painting, which ticks all the guidelines for how to create a composition, but it can feel empty. It can just simply be this rational painting that ticks those boxes. But if there's no heart and soul in it, and there's no story and no emotion, then maybe it's not the story that you want to tell anyway. Or maybe it's, yeah. So I think first you bring that from the heart, and then you tick those boxes and
Yeah.
say, okay, how do I frame that?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.